So now we are at electoral college vote at 248 for Trump and 216 for Harris. We have a panel. We're welcoming in Daron Shaw, a member of the Fox News Decision Desk. Welcome in Juan Williams as well, along with Karl Rove. Daron, we got you out here. We were going to say, what happened? Are we calling Georgia? And then you push the button.
Are you here to tell us that we were right when we said you called Georgia?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I thought you were going to come down here to grill me, and we preempted that.
What else are we going to call?
Yes. You guys called Georgia in the nick of time for you, Daron.
That's exactly right.
While we have you, how do you see this night? And was it like you thought going in? And as you look at the blue wall there?
Well, I think two things. This is an election. This is unprecedented by my standards because the more data I saw, the more possibilities seemed to unfold. There was stuff a couple weeks ago I didn't think could happen. I didn't think Trump could win, let's say, the national vote. I'm not saying he's going to, but that was something that nobody thought could happen. They thought he was capped at 47, 48%. That's a possibility. We had a lot of conversations about whether these swing states were going to move together or whether they were going to sort of crack and each move separately. There's a possibility tonight that, I didn't think this would happen earlier in the afternoon, but that he could sweep all of them. That's not a prediction, but it's something that's within the realm of possibility with the data we've seen.
You're saying blue wall turns into a red wall.
It's possible. And that wasn't something anybody was talking about. People talked about Michigan in particular as being the toughest state for Trump to crack. Now, Bill's shown the data recently. We've been looking at it for hours. Michigan's looking very difficult for her right now.
All these toss-up states had been within a point or two. So is there any way to look at what you see now and say this could be a win in a larger percentage than that? I mean, a lot of these states are still close, but...
Right. What we're looking at right now, we have sort of model data, and we're looking to reach a certain level of statistical significance to make a call. But we're also looking at what we call the outstanding vote. And so, for instance, in the case of Georgia, we were modeling about 835,000 outstanding votes. A lion's share of them were coming from suburban Atlanta. She needed to hit about 55, 56%. She was getting about 45%. And at a certain level, that becomes a statistical impossibility. The more data you get, the less room she has to actually grow or do better than she's been performing. And so that sort of triggered the call in Georgia. We're not quite there yet in the other states, but this may not be an election where we need to be here till Thursday or Friday.
Right. And so when they say go home, relax, you're saying maybe not yet.
We'll see if they, continue to count. Arizona and Nevada have been particularly stubborn about that. We understand in Nevada they don't allow any counting until the last vote has been cast, which is, we think, why we're getting basically nothing from Nevada so far. Yeah. But Arizona, it's coming in sort of droves. It's a close race there. Wisconsin and Michigan. Michigan seems to be counting there at like 54, 55%. Wisconsin at 2 a.m. in 2020 had counted 99% of the votes. So we think there's a chance we might have enough data in Wisconsin, maybe Michigan. So we may have some resolution more quickly than we had thought.
So in Pennsylvania, Sean talked about this earlier, the early vote and what that looked like and what she would have to do day of in Philadelphia and those counties right around there. Is it possible that's still out there and it's possible to do?
Well, it seems to be a probability diminishing by the hour. I think this is something from the Georgia data, but we have also seen it in Pennsylvania. Young African-American men did not come home. Part of the African-American vote came home to her, but a lot of it didn't, and there's a gender gap there. And the Georgia, I think, I have to run the numbers, and I'm not going to lay this at the feet of any demographic group in particular, but she really did seem to underachieve amongst African-American males, especially young African-American males.
I mean, it just makes me think about Michelle Obama and Barack Obama, the former president, and the very strong appeals that they made. Michelle Obama said, don't let your husband or boyfriend's rage dictate your vote. President Obama talked about bringing out the brothers and scolding them. That does not seem to have been a strategy that worked.
Daron, did the Fox News voter analysis track with what you saw with raw vote as you went around the states? Yes.
There were a couple. What we're doing early on is we get this early vote from Indiana and Kentucky. It allows us to kind of figure out is the FNVA performing consistent with the data. There were a couple states where Trump overperformed a bit. Florida was one. We were a little concerned that we might be overestimating Trump's performance in rural areas. But the more data we got, the more that didn't seem to be the case. It seemed like he was basically hitting what we thought he would hit. So,
I mean, we've got the brain here. Did anybody else have a question for Daron? Bryn?
I'm curious about immigration and what you've seen in terms of how much that played into the votes in some of these states.
well, I think the one thing we can say is that it didn't repel people. In particular, there was some talk about the Hispanic vote coming home over the issue of immigration. That did not seem to happen much at all. The FNVA suggested, I think it was 40% was Trump's performance amongst Latinos. That ended up being, I think, within 13 or 14 points of Harris's. I mean, if you showed me data before the election and said, that he's going to get 15% of the African-American vote, 40% of the Hispanic vote, I'd say that's an awfully tough night for a Democrat to win an election in.
There's some reporting that Trump has won Erie County, Pennsylvania. Is that square with anything you understand?
I think I think it was on sort of a knife's edge. I don't know if Bill's got the latest data, but
It was a, what we go here.
It's part of her hope,
It
right?
went back to the Trump team, and right now, currently, just to keep you guys up to date, he leads it by a point in 1.4, which is a little less than 2,000 raw votes.
and it's 99%.
It's left out. How much?
Yeah.
It's 99% in, or 90? What did you say?
90,
99%.
statewide, 90%. Daron, I got a question for you. When you think about the blue wall in the upper Midwest, when we were at the convention in Milwaukee in July, it ended on a Thursday. On a Friday, we had that national computer glitch, and all the airports were shut down. So all the delegates and all the journalists and all the campaign folks were stranded at the airport in Milwaukee. And I was still thinking at the time about, why did I just see Kid Rock? And why did I see Hulk Hogan? And why did I see Dana White? And I went to the campaign and I said, what's going on there? Because it was men. It was white men. And they said, we notice in the upper Midwest, at the time they were thinking about Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio to a lesser degree, and Pennsylvania. That's what they were thinking about. And they said, we noticed that there was a certain percentage of white men who voted in 2016. They sat out 2020, and we're trying to win them back. Is there evidence that those white males in those upper Midwest states did that tonight?
There was sort of a rule of thumb we were adopting that, and we spoke about this a little bit earlier in conversation with y'all, but that, the gender gap is a double-edged sword. Gender gap can help or hurt depending upon, the absolute level of support. We were looking at 55%. In other words, if Trump was hitting 55% with men, that was a good sign. If Harris was hitting 55% with women, that was a good sign. And in the upper Midwest states, he was getting closer to that sort of magic number than she was. So what they call it the bro strategy or whatever, it seems to have paid some dividends up there. I mean, we're still waiting, but it's looking pretty good for him.
So we can definitively say that the poll that we don't talk about in Iowa was kind of off. The Des Moines Register poll.
I love Ann Seltzer. She's a giant and a pioneer in our field. I think what we were looking at, ironically, was not so much the top line in that race, but what Seltzer had said was that senior women were breaking away from Trump over the abortion issue. And I think our friend Sean Trende had a really good observation where he said that may be true, but it may not help Harris because that's something that could occur in Iowa where abortion was a hot issue, but might not occur nationally in other states where abortion wasn't as salient.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.